Hello and welcome to the first episode of Get to Know. I'm your host, Maisan Barati. Hope everyone is having a nice afternoon. Before we start, I would like to give a brief introduction on Get to Know. Get to Know will be a video format podcast with audience, which will contain different segments from personal and professional life of our respective guests. This will not be a one episode show. It will be a series of shows with different staffs and different professors from PMT and also other courses from HDM. For the first episode of this show, we have with ourselves Professor Dr. Volker Jansen. Professor, thank you for accepting our invitation and featuring us in your busy schedule.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. So before we dive into questions, Professor Jansen is the Dean for Print Media Technologies, one of the most diverse courses in the entire Germany. We have students from 52 different countries. And I just want to ask, how does it feel to be the dean for such a course? Is it like too much stress? Is it too much excitement? How does it feel?
Well, it certainly feels different because people, when they come from different countries, they have different backgrounds. You know, they are the way or their expectations are different to German students, and that I think is the challenge. People need support, some of them at least in the beginning, and of course learning to know how things run in Germany. For some, that's a real challenge. And so, yeah, the job is slightly different because you need to look in a different way after students. I know the students by name. I always look into the data transcripts and make sure that, you know, I understand what the problems are. So you wouldn't do that when you have a very large group, say 300 people from the same country. You don't do that. But here, it's a much more personal thing than probably in an anonymous large class. So that is the difference. It is more personal, and there's a genuine interest in each and every student.
Maybe sometimes do you think like you're in the spotlight?
No, I don't think so. It is, of course, seen at the university as something very specific, something special. So it's not certainly a class which you, say, a program which you can expand, that you say, you know, we have 400 students or 500. This is virtually not possible because we could not manage. It always starts in the beginning. Students come here, they look for accommodation, they need to get registered, they need to get the visa, they need to get a lot of support. They come here and they have expectations. It's for them, you know, much more, I should say, life influencing than a German student who probably decides to study this and then 2 years later probably takes a different decision. For students who come here, this means having cost, means, you know, a family which needs to support this. They need to find accommodation, they need to acclimatize to a certain country, to a different country. They need to learn a different language. So the implications are much, much greater than for German students.
Yeah. So for the course Print Media Technologies, before 2018, this course was taught in German only. But since 2018, they changed this course to English taught program, an international program. So I want to ask you, what made you think that it's better to teach Print Media Technologies in an English language rather than German?
Printing is one of these things which are everywhere on the planet. Wherever you go, there's a printing press somewhere. And packaging is everywhere on this planet. So this is one of these technologies which you find everywhere. It's important for every in each country. It's important for the industries. It's not just communication that we print words which other people read. For example, say commercial printing, books, catalogs. No, it's also packaging. Packaging is important, especially in emerging countries where a lot of food needs different packing. You know, for availability, that's important. And so we have thought, what can we do? I myself, I've worked abroad many years. I worked in Malaysia, I worked in the UK, and I've seen that printing is not just international, but it's also, say, cross-global. So one company might have subsidiaries in many other countries. And printing companies and packaging companies, they're looking for say, staff which can work in various countries. So I saw that, it's international, not just that you find printing in each country. No, the companies themselves are global. And that has made us think about a different format. And so we developed the idea that if we have a truly international program, it got to be in English. Because, if you do that in German, you never have this international clientele, so to speak. And then when we started to do this in English, we started with 13 students. But they were already, international. And then very quickly it expanded, and we have now 40 study places. So the reason is very simple why. It's because an international business and the companies are global operating corporates, most of them.
Yes, Professor, you mentioned about your professional life background. You have worked in UK, you have worked in Malaysia, you have worked with BASF, held senior positions, especially the photopolymer project. I think we all heard about that. Which project was the most challenging for you in different countries which you had experience in?
Well, this is such a difficult question. Let me start with this and how it all came about. I studied, like yourselves, at a university. And when I finished, and in the 1990s, it was not common to go abroad, right? So I thought I should go to England. And England itself, is already a different country. So I went there, I enrolled, and I did a postgraduate study. When I came back to Germany, I applied with BASF. And it was actually, I was still in England when I applied. And so I eventually was invited for an interview, and I started there. And now to the project. Yeah. They employed me, obviously, because I spoke English. Most of my colleagues spoke German, but say English to a degree at what you would expect from somebody who did that at school. So one day, my boss came and said, well, can you come to my office? And I thought, oh, well, I must have made something wrong, being invited to the office. And then he asked me, do you like to go to Malaysia? Now, project Malaysia. I thought, Malaysia, where's Malaysia? So I had to, think hard. And they said, no, he said actually Kuala Lumpur. And I first thought Kuala Lumpur, that sounds African, must be in Africa. Okay. Now, of course, it's in Malaysia. And so the first challenge was, what job would I do? And they said, well, we don't know exactly, you run their technical center. So the challenge was developing a technical center which wasn't there. I had no experience. I only worked for, say, a year with BASF and was a junior. So, well, I said, yes, so why not? Just do it. And I had a girlfriend, I married her, and we went to Malaysia. And the challenge was there, to accept a totally different environment. I was, very oblivious of how life is in Malaysia. I mean, ask people and they don't know. They probably know Malaysia from television. So I've realized that things are totally different as I would have first imagined. Where I thought there are problems, there were no problems. Okay. And problems arose there where I always thought there won't be any problems. So you probably might think a technical center with a few machines which BASF put in for plate making, photopolymer, would be a challenge. No, it wasn't, because it came in easily. And then you probably might think a challenge is getting a printing press, because there was no fund, no money as usual. So I asked a company, and they would, happily put machines there. That also was no problem. Things you would think is a problem. The problem in Malaysia was different. It was actually defining the target of my work. So what would be beneficial to the company, and what would I need to do to make this beneficial, So we started to run technical courses for customers. But, we had not many customers in Asia, so the idea was to develop the business. And so I didn't know exactly how to do it, but I called up all our distributors and say, well, I'll visit you, and, we go together to the customers, and I help you, because I have a technical background. So this developed quite nicely. So I went there, we, went to customers, always had to sort out problems. And so eventually we grew the business. So the challenge was basically to decide what is beneficial, to organize your work. Nobody would tell me what to do. You know, the boss I had there, he wasn't in charge of photopolymers, was some BASF guy, far away, sitting at a different location. I couldn't go there and say, you know, what would I do today? You know, so I had to organize my own work. And that was the first challenge, you know, to know what I have to do, to find out what's important. And once I realized, you know, that I've got that freedom, but at the end of the day, you have to bring performance because, you know, your bosses in Germany, they want to see, you know, results. So that was the first time when I realized that, you know, a lot of creative work is required, a lot of thinking to do the right thing. The next biggest challenge was when I was in England, because there was a, you know, business. It went down. They sent me and said, you know, can you sort out the business? And I thought, oh God, you know, what shall I do? And then I did a few things. I thought, you know, if nobody likes to take BASF printing plates because they've got these contracts with the competition, then why don't I go to the customers of the customers and tell them, if you define BASF printing plates for your job, we can give you a certain kind of payback for every square meter of plate you would be using. And that's legally, that was okay, you know, so in terms of law. And I did that. And, you know, I thought that's a good idea. And then you know, customers got very angry on me, you know, how can you go do backdoor selling? You know, this is not done in England. And I thought, you know, so if you don't buy from BASF, you know, what can I do? And then one day somebody broke the ice and started to buy BASF plates. And then within a very short period, we were the market leaders in the UK. And we looked after our customers very carefully and so on. And, you know, I had a big team of people who were following suit. And that was a challenge in itself. But the biggest challenge, now I come to the biggest challenge, was an internal challenge. So you had the market, everything went well, and now you need to get the products. But where do you get the product from? Yes, from the production plant in Germany, but they couldn't deliver because the capacity wouldn't suffice to deliver, you know, the requirements we had in England or in the UK. So that was a challenge, I can tell you. And then you go back and tell people, well, I can't deliver, you know. So these projects sometimes turn out totally differently as you would think. You know, success has many facets, you know. You need to think through everything. And I learned there that you cannot just shoot and, you know, just follow one goal without looking back and thinking, can I deliver what I promise, you know? So these are things, and these were the big challenges I realized. But they were not challenges which happened in a moment. They unfolded over, you know, years, and new things came up. And here, the third challenge was the study course, you know, transforming something into an international course. And I still think there's a challenge to get the students here. There's a challenge, you know, to do the right thing. What do you need to know in 30 years? I really feel this is also another challenge. And every time, you know, you realize the decision you took, you didn't think everything through 100%. There's always something you were totally oblivious of, something which you haven't thought first through properly. And that's life experience, I think, you know, which you still build and which I'm still building. So 3 independent challenges. A young challenge when I was young in Malaysia, to know what I need to do. The second challenge, you know, to get the products you were promising. And the third challenge is now, you know, to get the students here and to deliver what the program promises. And yeah, these are the main challenges I faced, I think. You know, probably I can come up with more challenges, you know, when I think about it.
Yeah, I think we all can feel about this, how to get students here. We have also gone through that process of coming to Germany, although we got accepted by the university, but we still have another challenge of the visa and the processes. I think all of us have gone through such a process.
That's, for example, one challenge we never thought about. We thought, you know, well, we are accepting the students and here they are. No, And how long does it need to get an appointment for a visa? I think sometimes 9 to 12 months.
Yeah, sometimes in some
You know?
countries, 9 to 12 months.
Well, I never thought about this. It's a big problem. Not just challenge. It's a big problem.
Yeah, and the problem is like after even 9 to 12 months, you don't know if you're getting the visa. You're just getting an appointment. So that's also a really big challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, Professor, after working for so many years in the industry, and you have contributed a lot to the industry, you have worked in BASF and different countries. For me personally, the question is, for a person that has your qualifications, there's a need for a person such like you in the industry. How did you make the decision to change your career to academia and become a professor at HDM?
Well, one thing I didn't tell you is that after BASF, I had another life. I left BASF for a medium-sized company because the manager or the owner asked me to run his holding. These were 6 companies. And then we had a crisis in 2008. You probably remember dimly, that was the economic crisis. And the company slipped into a disaster. The biggest customer decided, they decided to change their marketing strategy, put it this way. And so the business shrunk. And all of a sudden, the profit margins are gone. And all of a sudden, you make a loss. So I was entrusted with the challenge, another big challenge, to rescue the company. And that was, painstakingly, I think, 4 hard years. So it started 2008, 9, 10 hit really badly, and only in 2012 we made money again. By that time, 40% of the people were gone. We had to make them redundant. We had to change the strategy of the company, change the products, change everything. And then the company was a new company, basically, after 4 years. I decided that, I need to do something else. And the biggest problem we had at the time was finding specialists, finding young people, to develop something new in the company. It's very hard in this industry. You advertise a job, and then you don't find anybody. So I thought, bloody hell, we need people in this industry. And then I saw in Die Zeit, I don't know if you know that, it's a weekly newspaper. I saw an advert for a professorship in Postpress. And since I did reorganize everything, I know Postpress very well, I thought I'm going to apply. And, even so, I was an industry person. But then it worked out nicely, and I came here. And driven by the idea that we need more specialists, after the company was rescued, and I decided that would be now the end of it, I need to do something else. That was actually the honest reason why I came here.
And that was 2012?
10 years ago.
10 years ago. Okay. So professors, when you see young people who are going to industry, engineers, and you're the dean of this course, and you also have experiences in the industry, how does this experiences affect your teaching methods, especially for the engineers who are studying print media technologies? What do you think, okay, they have to be taught this because we need this more in the industry, or they have to not be taught this because we don't need this in the industry?
There are 2 things. When you worked in the industry and you're not 100% from academia, you're used to do something and get to a result within a relatively short space of time. Here at the universities, things take much, much longer to come to fruition. So that's one thing. So you've got to be hands-on. That's something I took into the course. So when we changed and we said, well, we do this internationally, you have to have the belief. So this is very important. So when you do something in the industry, you change a department, you change a company, you rescue something, you build up a new business or market, you need to believe that you can perform, that you get to a good result. If you don't have that belief, you can't do it. So that's one of the things I think I brought into this, the belief that we can change things. Because many people here didn't believe that this international course would ever fly. Now they are, very wary. They see these things can happen, and you are here now. We can see that. That's one of the things. The second thing is, I think that printing is not so important for you. Important is that we look into a knowledge you acquire here, which you can use later. And what we see is that there are less and less technical people, less and less technical study courses. There's technical study courses compared to the humanities or, say, law or economics. They suffer. Less and less people want to do math and physics, and all are afraid of that. And, if they hear math, they get crazy. I believe that we need engineers in this country. We are a very technical country, and German wealth builds on the medium-sized people, medium-sized companies, on people who have a technical background. I think we sell a lot of technical things here in this country. So we need people. And so now organizing the program means we need to shift our program to new technologies. So we will go slowly, step by step, into 3D technologies, because I believe that that is a growing, very important part, of the industry in the future. There will be more and more 3D printing now. Think about what you can do with that. We can create, say, machines or materials which are porous inside, which give us totally different properties, stabilities, elasticity. So we haven't thought that through yet. And I believe in the future we can create all sorts of very super-like materials which are super strong, which could be used in space travel or wherever. And we are printing these things. Or think about bioprinting. It's a huge potential there. One day, I'm sure we will be able to replicate skin. So if somebody has an accident, we can replicate skin. So, and make, say, the defiguration undone. There are many, many possibilities, just to name a few. And that, I believe, is important for you. So that's the reason why we do 3D printing. That's the reason why you do a little bit more math and physics. That's the reason why you need to delve into even electronics, because all of that matters in the future. I'm absolutely sure IT matters in the future. It will be, many processes will be automated. And this is what we do in this course, So this is where I'd like to see the course shifting to. And then that, I believe, is because I worked in the industry. Because when you work in the industry, you always need to think about new markets, what is your customer doing in 5 years? You cannot stand still and say, well, I made it, that's it, now I can rest. It's never like this. You can never rest, not 1 minute. There's always something happening. And something is changing as you would actually expect it to change. Just think about the crazy times we're in at the moment. Who has thought, that could happen 5 years ago? We would have never expected this.
True.
But that's it, So important is that you have an education which you can, with contents, with knowledge, you can apply in the future. That's the important bit. That's my belief.
Yeah, I think for the students who are already in the first semester, we have 3D printing in third semester. Really interesting subject. We actually had also a company visit to a 3D printing. They were selling 3D printers, 3D printing agency, Orange Tower. And we went there. They're printing, even at the moment, not even in the future, they're printing bones that can be used for surgery. If you break a bone, then you can just 3D print another one. And the size. So if you have already some bones like already made, but with the help of 3D printing, you can just make different sizes for each person. And it's really an interesting topic, 3D printing, as Professor Jansen said.
And it can be a porous structure, which you decide how the porosity looks like.
Yes.
So that's, you can actually engineer the porosity.
Yeah,
that's something, which is.
So speaking of the courses we have at the university, Professor, last semester you taught a course, sustainability. Mm-hmm. What made you think this course, this subject was necessary for the engineers to learn more about?
I actually partly gave already the answer.
Yeah.
It is a thing which will matter in the future. And your generation will have to do with that a lot. You know, think about packaging, plastic packaging. It's not biodegradable. 95% of the packaging we have, plastic packaging is not biodegradable. A lot of fibers, synthetic fibers we're using. Nothing of this is recycled. Only 9% of the plastic is recycled, but it's only a question when these plastics at the end of the cycle land in a landfill. So when we think about this, this problem will be even worse. Climate change, all of that. So it will be part of your lives. We will not change that. I don't think we will change climate change. I don't think we will very quickly recycle all the plastics. But what we need to do is we need to find technologies to deal with that. You know, how do we clean up the planet? How do we live in a world where, you know, temperatures change, where, you know, entire areas are empty of people because it's so hot there that you can't live there. There are now already parts on this planet which are humid and hot, so that your body cannot reduce the body heat, that a human cannot live there. There are parts of Pakistan now which have that climate, or you know, Bangladesh. It's a serious problem.
Yes.
So I think we need to raise awareness. We need to look in the physics of it. So what is creating climate change? It's not just CO2. This is too simple. It's, you know, the way we cultivate our planet. This is cities, super huge cities in China are a problem. When you have, you know, a city with 30 million people, you know, that changes climate. Or the former Soviet Union, where you have huge fields, like in the Ukraine, you know, these huge fields you've got there. And there's no forest anymore. It was uprooted many, many years ago. But that has changed climate. And we are going on like that. So important is awareness. What is creating all these problems? What can we do to counteract it? And what are the possibilities? And I think technology can help us here. You know, especially how to deal with climate change. We will not revert this. We need, you know, this will come upon us. I'm sure it will. So how are we dealing with that? And technology can help us here. So it's important for us to be aware of what's happening. And that's the reason why we are having this sustainability course. We will not be able, not in 10, 20 years, to recycle all the plastics we're having. We cannot. The big problem is we have different layers. In a plastic film, for example, flexible packaging, where you've got barrier layers and, you know, support layers and layers for certain reasons or appearance, and printed ink, and then a coating on top. All of these are different types of polymers which you cannot separate. So what can you do with that? You can revert this into crude oil, but that, pyrolysis we call it, but that is very expensive. It's more expensive than crude oil. Technically, yes, we have possibilities to do something with it, but we simply don't. So important is now for you to realize this and to think about technologies which you can apply, you know, to reuse these materials. That is something, it's just about awareness in a way, and having a kind of a technical background to understand what's happening and what possibilities do you have at hand. That's the reason why we have that course.
Yeah, I think this course is one of the most interesting courses here, because for us, as you said, the younger generation, we have to be more aware of what's happening and how to deal with the issues that are coming up in the future. So for this segment, we came to my favorite segment. Now we get to ask questions from the audience. So if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and start. Yes, please.
I can start. So does the university keep in touch with the students, graduates, like 5 years after they finish the course, or 10 years even? And if maybe there are some stories of people who finished print media, but they work in a maybe a different but still like connected field. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but this is a very young course. We have only our first graduates, and of course, since they just graduated this year, early this year, we are in contact. But there is, you know, we have older graduates from the German program, and some of them, not all of them, some of them we still got contact. They sometimes offer internships for, the new students, or they come here to visit. But the idea is in the future, this is probably a dream, I don't know if we can achieve that, is a worldwide network amongst ourselves. So when you go to the industry, you have all your, your colleagues, student colleagues, which you still have contact to and still have contact with the university. I have now 2 students who graduated. What we want to do is publicize their work in America. So this is what I'm doing together with them even after they've graduated. There are a number of ideas, but we still need to develop this. So it's also up to you if you want to do that and want to contribute. That's the idea, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Next question. Do we have a question? Ion, yes, please go ahead.
I have a question about screen printing. Surprise, surprise.
Luckily, we've got the specialist.
Yeah, we got Michael also here.
Answer your question. Yes.
But I was just wondering, seeing as screen printing is the technology that we have the most machinery for, or the most amount of machinery for, it's not like we have bigger departments than screen printing, but we have a bunch of screen printing machines. I'm just wondering, why is it also the department with the least usage and classes within the PMT study course?
Screen printing as a printing process is a relatively, I should say, compared to, say, digital printing, it's less complicated, but it has a high creative potential, put it this way. So we decided that we would support the creative potential we have there. So students, especially in the early semesters, they can already use a printing press. They can already print a T-shirt. So the entrance technology is not so high, right? You know all about a T-shirt printing. It's relatively high. Once, we show people, they can do that. So this is the first step to get people into contact to ink, into viscosity of ink, and how, a transfer to a substrate happens. So we do a lot of practical there. In screen printing, and the representative of screen printing is over there. Probably you can agree that this is the case. Yeah. But to screen printing, there's another angle, which is a high-tech angle. This is printed electronics, where you use certain semiconductive paste to transfer to a given, say, substrate. For example, printed batteries, where you have to deal with very new, say, sort of pastes, and that is a different area, okay? And there the requirement is to know about material sciences. So screen printing is quite diverse in a way. So when you say, why is there not, a large screen printing course? Screen printing is hidden in other courses like electronic printing, industrial printing. This is where screen printing, lies. And there we have a quite a big lecture on screen printing, especially on the special applications like textiles, printed electronic, all sorts of bodies, or packaging where it's used like glass or wood, and the different types of inks which are used, because the variation of different inks used in screen printing is huge compared to other printing processes. So that's the reason why screen printing is hidden in other areas sometimes, and you stumble across this, during your studies all of the time, stumble across screen printing and say, hey, there's some part of screen printing, but it's, under a different container.
Thank you.
Do we have another question? Yes, please, Clemens.
Are you already looking for a professor for bioprinting?
No, we look for a professor for 3D printing. And at the moment we have some very good contenders, and they come, from different countries. But I'm not the decision taker now. We need to see if they can, be basically appointed as a professor. So we need to look at, the background, and if they can, there's a committee of people, and this committee of people, consisting mainly of professors from other universities, our university, and so on. They will take a decision later. But also the students will take a decision. So when we appoint a professor for 3D printing, or we call it additive manufacturing, then you will be invited for his first lecture. And then your opinion will be very important. In the committee, there are also students. And at the end of the day, we will take a decision together who would be the right contender. But it depends on his background and the lecture he will be giving to us. So you will know when we will have the trial lectures, I will let you know. You come and you can even ask questions. And that will be very interesting. So I can only tell you that we have, a widespread from Russia to Africa, a lot of applicants for that. And, they all worked in the industry.
Thank you.
Do we have another question? No? Okay.
Come on, you need to ask a question,
Yeah, it's a bit complicated.
No, go ahead, it's fine.
Okay, so you spoke before about the plastic problems and that it's pretty hard for us and other governments to take action and to solve this problem. So do you think maybe in the future that we would create a solution for the plastic problem and then maybe the people and the companies and the government would try to capture all those maybe wastes to create something out of it and sell it back to us? Because after all, it's all made of carbon and polyester stuff. So we could in some way break the structure and form it into something different that we could be able to use.
I believe it's not so much a technical problem. When you look at possibilities, what we could do with, waste plastics, there are a number of possibilities. We can put this back into crude oil up to a certain extent. We can recycle some of it. We could even incinerate it and, use the energy. I think the biggest problem is the organization behind it. Who collects the plastic? Do we know if certain plastics belong to a certain type? Technology could help. We could actually implement a microchip into each plastic bottle, and then it runs over a conveyor belt, and then, the information is given which plastic it is. So technically, there are thousands of possibilities to deal with that. It's an organizational question. I believe, honestly, it's about the politics. As long as crude oil, sorry, but it's still cheap compared to, a recycled, a plastic product, we'll say, not recycled, but, a plastic product which we convert into oil again. As long as crude oil is readily available and so inexpensive, it's a problem. So I think the politicians, the governments, the industry, up to a certain extent, but also communities, they need to want this. And unless they want this, it won't happen. Look at yourselves, the way you deal with plastics. Are you sorting this? Say this is PE, this is PS, this is PA. You don't do that, right? You throw everything away. And it's also about awareness. And how can we deal with different plastics? How can we identify them? And what are we going to do with them? I honestly think it's an organizational question. I think the technology behind it, it's not so critical. It's a question of what we want to do and to understand the effects of what we do. More problematic are the gases which we are producing, like methane and nitrous oxide and CO2. That's not so easy to solve that. But the plastic waste, but we need a global concept. At the moment, most of the plastic lands in rivers. This is some of the big polluters are the Yangtze River in China. There's obviously no organization there to collect the plastics first before they actually get into the rivers. Egypt is also a good example, when you look what's running down the Nile River. This is an organizational thing. This has to do with governments, this has to do with communities and people. And I have no solution for that. I can only tell you what the technical solutions are, but if they're implemented, if somebody pays for it, if you're ready to pay for it, packaging is already expensive, but it will be more expensive in the future if we recycle it and if we collect it and if we do something with it, if we clean it. Think about all the containments for food you're having. They are contaminated. Now, what can you do with contaminated plastic? You need to clean this. So there need to be, concepts. We need concepts. The technology is not the problem. I don't think so. It's the concepts, the organization, it's the political will and the communities who want to change something. And if they want that, we can do this. And that's also a reason why we do sustainability, to build up the consciousness that we have an urgent call here, Since the 1950s, plastics were introduced more and more into the consumer world. End of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, the first time people realized that there's plastic waste in rivers and so on. And only in the, at the change of the century, I remember when we talked about this huge whirl in the ocean where all the plastic accumulates. But ever since the last decade, the use of plastic, or I think has doubled, or the last 20 years at least, it has doubled. So it's amazing. It's just increasing. Now, we have that growing business of packaging, which is good news for us with printing. But on the other hand, we have the sustainability we need to see. So a concept is needed. That's what I believe. And the concept needs to be global. A concept in Germany alone doesn't help much. We need a concept in China and India and in Brazil, where, most of the population of this planet live. Concepts need to be established. And, but I'm positive. It has to happen one day. It has to happen. We cannot go on like this. If we do, well, it will affect communities, it will affect countries, it will affect the life of people negatively.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for asking questions. So I think it's enough talking about industry. I think everyone is eager to know more about your personal life. In this segment, we have some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Don't blame me for this. The person who wrote the script wrote these questions, so
okay.
I don't have any influence on these questions. The first question, it's just a one-sentence answer.
Okay.
What's your favorite drink?
Bitter lemon.
When are you most productive?
In the morning.
What's your favorite color?
Blue.
What was your first job?
I looked after children, which were between 6 and 10.
So babysitting.
So, kind of a babysitter, yeah. But it was, with the scouts, so this was my first job.
Okay. What was your favorite subject in school?
I never had one. I didn't like school.
Oh.
No,
Okay.
I never had really a favorite subject. It's interesting that you asked that.
Okay. Your favorite movie?
Favorite movie, Harold and Maude.
Okay, interesting. Your favorite sport?
Football?
Do you play it still?
No, my son plays football. I have to go every Sunday and see my son.
Okay, and your favorite book?
I don't think you have read it. It's Heinrich Mann, Der Untertan. Untertan, this is the subject, or you could probably say the straw man. It is about the empire of William II in Germany, and it's a very, very blatant criticism. It's a satire. It criticized very much the German society between, say, 1871 and the First World War. Okay. So if you want to know something about German, in a very bitter sense, then read that book.
Okay. Professor, for the last question of today's show, if you had a billboard in the middle of the city, what would you write on it? Just one word.
Take it easy.
Perfect. I'd like to thank everybody, thank the audience, thank you for coming here. We're looking forward to have you for the second show. Thank you, Mr. Matthias Carlos, for helping us with technical stuff. and the organizers, everyone who wrote the script. I will not disclose the names. We're looking forward to have you for the second series episode also. This will not be the last episode. Of course, we'll have more guests here. I'm looking forward to have Mr. Matthias Gallos also as a guest, but we will see what he feels about it. And thank you for coming today. I hope you guys have a nice day. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Jansen.
Thank you. Bye-bye.